you don't have to wait for them to sit down because they have it. I turned it off though. Good afternoon.
Can you hear me? Yes. Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm Deborah Becker. I'm a co-founder of DSTRXNS with the Lieberman family. My son was the front seat passenger in the accident that took Evan's life. My son was extremely lucky. He had serious injury. He had surgery, but he's recovered. But it's a life-changing experience, even for those who are lucky enough to recover from it. So today, we've had a great conference, I think. We've talked about various topics, enforcement, so we were not going to go over that again. I found just Mayor's comments very interesting about behavior, because that's what our panel is going to focus more on. We're coming down to the level of communicating really with high school students, and what kind of messaging to high school students would reach them, and what kind of media would be most effective with them. So I have a number of panelists to help on this topic. I've got Ed Bergstrasser from AT&T, who's going to start in just a moment. We're just going to hand down the microphone. We want to be informal. If you have questions, please stop us. At the end, I'm going to start asking some questions, and we welcome you to also participate. Have Beverly Pierce from Student Assistant Services, and Sasha, who is a high school student in Westchester County, who has consented to come here and represent students for us on this panel. So, Ed, if you'd like to get started.
Sure.
It takes a minute.
Hello. Testing. I'm Ed Bergstrasser, External Affairs Director for AT&T, representing the eastern half of New York State. And what I have to say is a little bit of a shill for the It Can Wait campaign, which I've been pleased to be a part of for the last couple of years. And I know you've heard a little bit about it, and Marissa, my colleague, mentioned a little bit about it, but it's our public service grassroots campaign to educate school communities and encourage students, parents, and teachers to actually sign a pledge to not text and drive, whether online or physically via poster boards that we bring from campus to campus. And under that umbrella of It Can Wait, AT&T has been actively pursuing It Can Wait events throughout the state. And feel free to go to itcanwait.com, which is a well-traveled website. But also within the It Can Wait website, itcanwait.com website, are a couple videos that I would encourage you to look at. One of which we saw an excerpt from, called The Last Text, which we've used effectively at these assemblies and various events that we've gone to across the state. And the other one is called From One Second to Another, which was directed by Werner Herzog, who also directed Grizzly Man, and he did it on a pro bono basis for AT&T. The It Can Wait events come in many flavors. We've had assemblies, we've had class sessions, teen driving safety events, and public events, including minor league baseball games, at which we've staffed wheel and pedal kits, for instance. So I'll give you my contact info in just a couple of minutes, but if you have any suggestions for schools that you'd like to have one of these kinds of events at, with a preference toward a larger assembly, then please contact me, and we'll see if we can work something out. To date, here's my It Can Wait shill, and I'll just be 2 seconds, Deborah. More than 2 million pledges have been made on the It Can Wait website to never text and drive again, and 165 plus organizations have joined the cause. And we've seen 250,000 downloads of AT&T's free app called Drive Mode, which, when enabled and the vehicle is moving 25 miles per hour or greater, automatically sends a customizable auto reply message to incoming texts, letting your friends know that you're behind the wheel and will reply at a later date. we need for that technology to get more driver specific, as we discussed earlier today, and hopefully AT&T will have its hand in that as well. And just very briefly, the key messages that I've been using and that my colleagues use in these assemblies are a lot of the ones that you've heard today, and the key one is to make texting and driving as socially unacceptable as drinking and driving. Another would be that, and we bring these stats up again and again, that distracted drivers are 23% more likely to be involved in a crash, and teens send and receive text messages 5 times more than their adult counterparts. And the key one, generally it takes about 5 seconds to read or respond to a text, and that's equivalent to driving the length of a football field blindfolded. But the most critical message is the one that we use at every distracted driving event, and that is that no text is worth dying for.
Good afternoon, I'm Beverly Pierce from Student Assistance Services, and I'm going to tell you who we are, what we do, and how we do it. So starting off, Student Assistance Services is a private, not-for-profit substance abuse prevention agency serving Westchester schools and communities. Our largest program is our Student Assistance Program, and we are currently implementing programs in over 40 Westchester secondary schools, where counselors with master's degrees in special training in substance abuse prevention and early intervention provide a full range of services to students. In addition to prevention education, school-wide awareness activities, screening, assessment, referral, individual and group counseling, we provide students with leadership development to promote an alcohol and drug-free lifestyle and other healthy choices. In each of the schools, our counselors facilitate a Students Against Destructive Decisions Club. Now, while our mission is not specifically distracted driving, certainly we recognize substance use and distracted driving as destructive decisions. So as with substance use, we understand that in order to affect change, we have to increase the perception of risk of harm associated with these behaviors. So that's who we are. But we also, if we understand or if we know that if adolescents perceive distracted driving as harmless, that they won't change their behavior. So we know that if they recognize the risk of harm, they'll be more apt to change their behavior. So what do? We offer awareness campaigns, and those are really to bring attention to the issue. We educate by disseminating information, research, and data. We also, as adults and as parents, have to be good, healthy role models to adolescents. And then peer support. Young people have to have the voice to speak to their peers about distracted driving. So what are some of the things that the Westchester schools have done around distracted driving? I can tell you one of the programs of Student Assistance Services is our ROAD program, and that ROAD program, the acronym stands for Reduce Our Adolescent Drinking, Drugging, and Driving. And 2 of our ROAD health educators are in the back row. And what they do is they go into high schools and they work with the health teacher and with sophomores and juniors to educate them around the dangers of distracted driving, whether it's substance use, texting driving. So they're in the schools. The program is actually free to the school districts because it is funded by the fines of convicted drunk drivers. So schools can have the program for free. So that's one of the things that we do. In addition to that, the counselors are all running Students Against Destructive Decisions clubs, and some of the things that they've done, in one of the schools they painted all of the speed bumps in the student parking lot with no texting driving, no drinking driving messages. So when students come into school, they ride over those speed bumps every day, and it just reinforces that message. In another school, students made posters about the dangers of distracted driving, and they posted those posters throughout the school. bulletin board displays addressing distracted driving, including messages against and facts around the dangers. They brought in the driving and texting simulator, which I think I saw as I was coming in. So they bring those into the school as well, and the students certainly get a lot out of that. Classroom presentations have been really helpful, talking about the dangers and the laws. Also, impact assemblies, where the presenter has come in to talk about being irreparably harmed by distracted driving. That's been also very helpful in the schools. One of the schools annually has a safe driving night for both parents and teens, and that program is really well attended in the school. They generally get 200 to 300 parents and teens to come out for that program. And I can certainly speak to you more if you'd like about any of these individual programs. Educational pamphlets with tips to keep teens safe. One school created the pamphlets and they distribute them to all of their students. Students made a video in one of the schools and they uploaded it to YouTube. And it was a great video giving, making pledges to not text and drive or drink and drive. And not only were the students part of the video, but the faculty and the principal were also part of that video. So that was really a nice message. And it also was, they also were able to play it on the monitors in the hallways in the school. So it just reinforced. A family university, where a workshop series is designed for parents and students. That's another program that's been done. Anti-driving and texting video, it can't wait. I think Ed just told you all about that. That certainly has come to the schools. And then also, Deborah Becker will speak to you more about some of the focus groups. And Sasha, I was a part of the focus group, so they'll tell you more about the focus groups that the students participated in. And again, if you want to speak to me further about any of these activities, I'm happy to do that.
I just want to thank Student Assisted Services. I ended up meeting them through, I contacted a SAD counselor at one of the high schools, and I was so impressed by the program and by the counselors that I met. I went into 4 high schools to have discussions with the students. We're trying to figure out what messaging would mean to them rather than putting it from a parent's perspective. So because we know that student to student would be more effective. But all of the counselors were terrific and clearly had great relationships with their students that are making a difference. So I encourage you, if you do have questions for Student Assistant Services, it does seem to me they can be something of a model for other places, or some of their programs might be useful in your own situations. So one of the schools I did go to, Sasha was there. So I'm going to ask her to just talk a little bit about her school program and what she thinks is important, and then maybe pose a question or two, and then we'll come back for some more questions.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Sasha and I'm here to represent my school's SAD club. So SAD stands for Students Against Destructive Decisions, if that wasn't clear before. I have been an executive, also known as a leader of SAD, for 3 years now, and a member of my club before then. And my goal as the face of safe driving in my school and community is to focus on the dangers of driving while under the influence of alcohol, drugs, and texting while driving. So this is the first year where driving and texting related deaths have surpassed the amount of deaths due to drunk driving. So I find it imperative that we as students and parents and adults crack down on this issue before it continues to grow. And personally, I believe that we can solve this problem by creating awareness and really showing people what they are risking by grabbing their phone while driving. Such as AT&T's powerful commercials and efforts to show people the tragedies of distracted driving. My club alone has worked hard to provide numerous events for my school so that they can see the issue themselves. One of the events we organized last year was a major simulation where we had the entire school come out for a surprise assembly where everyone sat on a hill and watched a simulated distracted driving accident. This event was not only powerful, but it was shocking and extremely interactive. Afterwards, we had an amazing speaker come in, and he described his life story and his experience with drunk driving. I personally know that this event was powerful and effective because people were listening. And I've never sat through an assembly at my school where I saw no kids talking except for this assembly. And people came up to me and thanked me after when I was done because they felt that this was necessary and effective. Speaking up and getting your voice heard is crucial to this movement, and we have to be the ones that make this change. Thank you.
I'm going to pick up the other one. Sasha, because you gave me an example of somebody coming to the school, and when I went to the focus groups, one of the things we asked was, what's the best way to spread the message? Who would you listen to? And I think that some of the students said, well, speakers, but only if they were sort of personally involved. And there was, and I guess is what you're saying. What made an impact is they could see the crash and the effects of the potential distracted driving.
Is this working? Yeah. I definitely agree with that, and I think when kids are getting their hands-on experience, they can learn easier and really see what the problem is. So it's a big thing now to have problem-based learning and project-based learning, and so as much as involved as kids can get, I think that's the best thing that we can really do and really have them see firsthand. So like you said, if kids are telling kids, like your friends are telling your friends, that texting and driving is not cool, that has a huge impact on, I think, you and anyone really surrounding you, because it's positive peer pressure.
Because one of the questions, we took the same set of questions, and I say we because I went with a school psychologist, two different young women, because I figured the students would talk to them, they were closer to their own age, and we wanted to, it wasn't an academic study, but we wanted to pose the same questions and see school to school and what the perspectives were of the different students. So one of the questions we ask is, if you were a passenger in a car and your driver was texting, would you speak up? Would you ask the driver to stop texting? So we had a range of answers, and I wanted to get Sasha's views to what she thinks, how students would react in that situation.
I definitely think that it depends who's driving. A lot of kids can yell at their parents and say, stop doing that, or yell back at them. So I think it's easier in that situation. And I actually, from the panel, when you came in before and you talked to the other students, they mentioned that if it was their friend, it might be harder because it's hard to tell your friends difficult things because you are so close and similar to them. I know that a great way to totally change their idea on like texting and driving and really make them not text and drive is just saying, oh, I can send the text for you, I'm not driving, let me just send the quick text, or let me just write back to the person that's texting you, I'll text you back later, I'm not driving in 5 minutes or whatever it is.
Because one of the things, and tying into changing behavior, because we were sort of asking the students to think ahead of time because they know this situation is going to happen, right? They're going to get in a car with somebody else and they might be texting, so how would they handle it if they have a plan ahead of time? I think a couple of boys said, well, I just grabbed the phone, being the more direct approach. I asked, would it be hard to for a taxi driver, if you were in a car with somebody you didn't know, and actually the answers were both ways, it would be harder because I don't know them, or it would be easier if I don't know them. But I think sort of preparing kids, students for these kinds of situations, because it's awkward, particularly with their friends, they seem to have difficulty speaking up in that situation, and the closer the friend, the harder it was, it seemed, if they were texting. And I don't know, Ed, if you when you go to schools, if you hear that sort of thing, but that seemed to be something. But we talked so much at Sasha's school, I didn't have a chance to tell the students, but I started at the other schools telling them that the passengers should speak up. And the reason is that often in accidents, it's the driver that's going to come out better than the passengers. And you don't really think that because maybe when we grew up that wasn't the case. But now, and I know this from the hospital staff where my son was taken, and the driver and my son were taken to the same hospital. Evan and another boy, a passenger, were airlifted. And the issue is that for the passengers is that the back seat has no airbags. If you hit direct on, they have side curtain airbags. But a backseat passenger thrown forward in a head-on collision like the one that with Evan and my son, it's all the student's going to be stopped only by the seat belt, which is going to cause potentially damage. My son got thrown forward. He had the airbag, but it was farther away. The driver's airbag is in the steering wheel. So as it turns out, the driver may be the one who walks away. And in the case of the accident, that's what happened. He had a dislocated broken wrist, but his passengers all had to have, they had fatal or serious injuries. So I think that passengers need to think about that, and they need to have a strategy, because really the life that they save from speaking up may be their own. They are more at risk in many accidents than the driver. So that's my little spiel, but I would hope people that don't realize that. I didn't before this happened to my family. I have another question about type of messaging, victim statements, enforcement, student-to-student messaging, whether you have thoughts on what's the best way. I think so. I was a little surprised at social media. I was told that wasn't a great way to reach the students because somehow they're not going to take messages from that. Would you agree with that, Sasha? Or how do you think people would respond? What's the best kind of forum to reach them, do you think?
I definitely think that they have some impact. It's definitely an in-the-moment kind of thing. When you're driving or you're in the car, if you saw a sticker, I think that's very, very effective. Of course, stickers get old, so maybe changing up a sticker like once a year, just having a sticker that says "Don't text" or something like that you'll see every day, that's definitely effective. AT&T, the commercials, I remember when you came in, everyone mentioned, oh, like I know the AT&T commercial, and it's really sad and everything like that. I think it makes people think, maybe not when they're driving, but definitely while they're sitting there watching TV. So we have to get people to think while they're in that position, while they're in the moment.
And let's talk about...
Deborah, some of the feedback that we've received from our different and various assemblies have told us that the bringing a victim's family onto the scenario is most effective. So, okay. In addition to this.
Yes, I meant to tell Ed that every school mentioned the It Can Wait campaign. One or two schools also mentioned the governor's text stop with the signs. When the law was enacted to increase the penalties, there were students who were along the highway. There were signs saying increased penalties. That seemed to also make an impact. I kind of took away that there really has to be an approach. Different people seem to be impacted by different messages and types, and maybe it needs to go across the board. But I want to talk about what we called graphic and scary videos. Nitsa, I'm not sure if it's still here. Because actually at two different schools, the students said that's what would move them to see scary and graphic videos, because to Beverly's point, they don't seem to understand that the seriousness, the consequences. So I'm wondering if the panelists want to comment on, the graphic and scary. Maybe Ed, I don't know if you show those in your assemblies, but Beverly,
yes. I can certainly tell you across the board, we've certainly heard from students that is what makes the impact, is those assemblies where there's some great impact, or personal stories, or the gory graphic. Not for adults. I think the research says it doesn't work for adults, but it certainly works for adolescents.
And Ben has been with me at a couple of the assemblies, and I could say that in reaction to the videos, there's no dry eye in the house.
So I wanted to talk a little bit more about making a plan ahead of time, because it's one thing that we walked into the school talking to the students about trying to get their reaction, because I describe it as we don't prepare people for a fire by just saying to them, don't stay in the building. People make a plan ahead of time so they know what to do. So one of the thoughts we talked with the students at each of the school is, when you get in the car, what do you do with your phone? Because if you wait and you know where the phone's going, right? It's going on the console. It's going to be the volume's on. They're going to hear every time that it beeps. So we talked a little bit about what kinds of things people would be willing to do. And I don't know if you have ideas what people might do in your school, Sasha. I can sort of report, but if you want to take this question.
Sure. I know personally I like to put my phone on silent, and people say, oh, you can't really put it on silent. There's actually a do not disturb thing that you can do on an iPhone, and you just click it and it doesn't notify you at all, it doesn't buzz, which I find effective. Some people say, like, if they're driving at night, they could still see the light. So for people like that, I would say, usually some people in the center console of their car, they'll have one of the things that opens, and so you can put it in there, and that way, when you get out of the car, you don't have to go, like, in the back to go get your phone. And, you know, everybody's lazy, so you can't go to the back, but some people said that they wouldn't want to put it in their glove compartment again because laziness and, you know, having to go to the other side to get your phone. So I would definitely say, also, yeah, most people said they wouldn't shut off their phone completely. I personally also wouldn't do that just because of an emergency situation. So I definitely would say, like, the do not disturb little thing that you could do. Yeah.
One student said put it on airplane mode. Then you're not going to receive the messages, but the phone is still on. I think there was discomfort of putting the phone in the trunk and not having it in reach altogether. So I think that maybe as we ask students to make plans, it wouldn't necessarily be the perfect plan that we might pick for them, but moving them in that direction so that they would decide ahead of time, I'm going to turn off the volume. At least then they're not going to hear the beep, right? If you say, and parents could talk to their kids about what are you going to do with the phone? Because if they get in the car with the phone, the beep, the urge is very much to answer that as soon as they hear the message beep, to look at it at some point. So, that's what we would like people to also think more of a plan. I call it, you get in the car, you look your mirrors, you click your seat belt, where's the phone? And so maybe thinking of the panel we just heard, what behavior are you going to do? You have to have some positive behavior to offset the bad behavior, right? The one you're going to substitute. So if we say mirror, seatbelt, phone, if we could get everybody to think about the phone when they get in the car, where's it going to go? And if they've already decided, well, this is what I do with my phone. One girl said she puts it in her pocketbook, she can't reach it. Another boy said he puts it in his backpack. So then at least they had a strategy, an agreed upon strategy. So at the time they were ready. When they got in the car, they were making these plans. Language, and I called it an accident. I know Ben and Debbie, their view as we call these distracted driving accidents. I think that from speaking to the kids and as I kind of go through thinking of the social awareness, we would like people to not call them accidents when people are texting or other distracted driving. They're collisions, they're crashes, and I know that the law enforcement this morning called it a distracted driving crash. And that's because we still see with the students that they don't condemn distracted driving in the same way that they condemn drunk driving. We want to change the perceptions, because really, if somebody picks up a phone, they made the conscious decision. They picked up their phone, they're texting. If it's, maybe they did it 10 times before, but now they have an accident, they have the collision. Is it really an accident at that point? We want to start to change that kind of thinking, because one question I did ask, and Sasha remembers, I asked all of the students, would you get into a car with a driver that you knew was drunk? And the answer, of course, from everyone was absolutely not. They would not ever do that, because I think the drunk driving, the message has come across. But then I asked, would you ride in a car with somebody who's texting? And you may ask them, and they still are texting, that they're not going to get out of the car. We haven't reached that point where people would refuse to drive. Do you think that's the case?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I think people think that, oh, okay, we're at the top of drinking and driving, and now finally people are realizing we're coming down from that. People are not doing that. People are not getting in cars with people that are under the influence. And at this point with texting and driving, we're still, I think, at that top, and we're still waiting for people to realize that it's not okay to text and drive, and it's not okay to get in a car with somebody that's texting and driving.
So speaking of people who are texting and driving, at each of the schools, we also ask, do any of you students have parents who text and drive? And do you want to guess how many hands went up? You would a lot, more than I was surprised. And being the parent of a son who was nearly killed in this kind of accident, it really kind of shook me in the sense that I find it hard to believe in. And the parents are doing what sometimes the kids say they're doing. They're texting because they're stuck in traffic. And I think this morning somebody said, well, I was, the car slowed down and then sped up. I'm stuck in traffic. I'm at a stop sign. So I think that the fact that they can still get tickets, they have their phone in their hand, the stop sign, that still is going to get them the penalty. They're still sort of equivocating, and they would say, well, my reflexes are better. I'm young, my reflexes are better, so I can still text and drive. Or when I say, well, what do your parents tell you? And they said, well, my parents say we're experienced drivers, and so therefore we can text and drive when you can't. So I would say to the parents, and I hope next, yes, exactly.
Because your role models, children, are doing the same thing. It's just like saying, well, I don't have to do drinks because I'm experienced. Working with students, working with students, the kids have not established a habit of driving with their cell phones. The parents, the kids are going in at 16 as beginners. They're starting out. They haven't established that driving with cell phone. They have to be a real good lesson. So to me, a lot has to be done to educate the parents. Because they're the ones who, they got to have.
And I think that was what some of the students said, that they thought they were getting the message and they thought we should deal with the parents. So I think that's a project for us next fall, is to maybe talk more with the parents. But I can only imagine how a parent would feel who texts and drive, or really permissioned it, and then gets what I call the call from the hospital to go because your child has been killed or injured seriously, and you modeled that behavior that has now injured your child. So I would ask, putting aside all the financial issues that parents could have by doing such a thing, that they stop. And the students weren't proud. I asked them, they kind of raised their hands. They're not proud that their parents are texting because they do know that it's wrong. I don't know if you've ridden with adults or seen that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think before I started doing texting and driving in SAD, my mom would probably text and drive, and my friends' parents, really everyone that I saw, and almost everyone really in the car. And now it's starting to slow down. People are becoming aware, but it definitely needs some work, and we definitely still need to be pushing to show how awful it really is.
A couple of the students suggested that the messaging start at a younger age, that before they start to drive. And I thought maybe, I don't know how that goes, but that way to break the habit, essentially, as you're saying, that by the time, so that they really have that message before they start to drive. Some of them take driver's ed and they're getting the messaging, but not everybody takes driver's ed in New York. It's not required, just takes a little bit longer to get a license, and so you can't only put it into driver's ed. We also talked about messaging, what kind of things would be, and I really like talking to the kids and hearing what they have to say. We talked some about how, as others have pointed out, people can text for a period of time and drive and nothing happens, right? So they begin to think that it's okay because I did it 9 times, and so maybe I can do it the 10th time. So one student said, well, yeah, it's like Russian roulette. So we decided that was a good way to think of it, is texting and driving is like Russian roulette, because one day the gun will go off. You can't do it continually. Some point somebody's going to get caught. Maybe not for a while, but these are the kinds of accidents that can happen. One boy went straight to the point, because we were talking about people, how they text. He goes, texting and driving is stupid. So I thought that was a pretty direct message, and maybe for some people wanted the facts that the drunk driving is now being surpassed by distracted driving accidents, texting accidents. I don't think that the students, when we started to give them numbers, realized how many people are really dying or being seriously injured. It doesn't seem that way to them. So there's still a lot of work to be done. I do think that the kinds of contributions that are being made by AT&T and the SAG clubs and student assistance services are really making a difference. But we want to still keep working on the behavior, both with the parents and with the students, to decide ahead of time what they're going to do, where's the phone going to do, where's it going to go in the car. And the parents should definitely talk to their children and certainly stop texting, but talking to the kids ahead of time about what they're going to do. So I don't know if people, because there are many experienced people in the room that have been dealing with these issues. I know JC, I don't know if you want to contribute. You've spoken to so many kids as to what you think it really is reaching them. I think the personal stories do reach people, and understanding that it can have fatal consequences. It seems to me those were points that need to come through to the students. So, Sasha?
I've actually seen JC speak quite a few times, and it definitely has a huge impact on me, even if I've seen the same presentation. It's amazing what it can do, and just really getting the word out there and really letting people hear and really feel that experience can change lives. So I definitely think it's important.
We kind of put together a slogan from a couple of schools. They said, for messaging, they said, keep it short and make it personal. And I think that, the victims, what we're hearing, that they're impacted by victims or the possibility that they are going to be in the accident, seeing the graphic and scary because they can put themselves in that position is what is also effective. But I think long presentations don't necessarily carry the day. It's more the interactive. Would you agree with that?
Right. Yeah.
Most of our presentations last one school period with a component at the end for a wheel and pedal demonstration kit. So I would agree. And also would agree emphatically about we're seeing more and more of the assemblies we do involve kids who are just getting their driver's licenses, sophomores in high school. So it's I'd have to agree with that student big time.
So do you have questions for us or the panelists? I would be happy to take questions from the floor.
Actually, it's really simple. I was going to give his contact information.
Oh, sure. Yes. It's eb1481@att.com. And the phone is 845-546-8300.
So some of you we may be in contact with, Dorks. We have a fall project that we're thinking of and would like to work with people. So I'm going to just throw it out there and see what Sasha thinks of it too. I don't know if you've heard this one yet. We call it Away for a Day. What we're looking for is for the high school students and their parents to commit for one day that they won't use the cell phone in the car, because this is an effort to raise social awareness and also to reach the parents and not just the students. So this is something that we would try to work with Student Assistance Services, and we've already started talking with Ed, with AT&T, Westchester Medical, and Student Assistance Services. So it wouldn't take a lot of commitment by many of the students. They just would have to commit. Maybe they'll sign the It Can Wait pledge. We'll kind of work on how we would approach it. Maybe have something at night or similarly, but even if we don't do any of that, if they will commit and pledge just to turn off the phone for the day. So what do you think?
Personally, I think it would be effective to do a pledge, but a permanent pledge, because my impression is that we shouldn't do just for a day, because then people think, oh, one day, that's only one day, I can do it.
Okay, well, be careful with the word.
Yeah, but I definitely think making people sign a pledge I know we do pledges at my school, and we have people, we just give them like a piece of candy and they sign a pledge, but when they sign the pledge, they realize, wow, look, I'm signing this, and then we hang it up in the school and people see it, and you see it, and your friends see it. So they're like, wow, I signed this pledge, and now I have to follow it. And we've had people that come and, you know, kids like candy, but we've had kids come just to sign the pledge. So you know that it's working, and you know that they're not just there for whatever, they just really want to sign the pledge. And I think that having that pledge, just like a permanent pledge, is probably the most effective.
Because when we talked to the SAD groups, I was very impressed with the kids, but I asked them, I said, are you representative? Because these, of course, are the kids that have joined the clubs, and they're the ones that have heard and are concerned. So what would you say? Do you represent the viewpoint of a lot of the student body, or do you think that the kids in the SAD club, because just they self-selected in a way, how do you think the rest of the students are perceiving distracted driving?
Distracted driving in general, I don't think I could speak for everyone. I definitely speak for a good amount of the student body, definitely for my club. Like I said, we're still at that top, so we do need to become more aware in total. I think, like I said before, drunk driving, it's come far, far down from what it used to be. I think it was 28 people died each day due to drunk driving in the United States. It was 38 last year. So that's huge in itself. And I think, like I said before, I do drinking and driving while high and driving while texting in my club, and that's what we go over. And I think driving while high and driving and texting is definitely something that people need to become more aware of.
I think I'm going to let Sasha have the last word here. Any questions? Anybody? Okay, then thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate it.